This has got to be the weirdest control in the Kemper now. Dudes, I'm confused. And I think I know the Kemper pretty well. We've got this now super confusing parameter in here called brightness intensity. I want to show you why it's confusing, because I got an email about this, and I was like, dude, I don't blame you for being confused. I get it. Check out what happens when I turn this up all the way. And by the way, I'm using the Match Chief LPM, and I've just turned my gain up pretty much to max. And I come in here, and I'm using the Mars Plexi Bright tone model. And I've got the bright cap on 10. I want you to hear this. Listen to this. Listen how this sounds. And then I'm going to roll the bright cap all the way down, and you tell me if you hear a difference. I'll put it on the bridge. Now I'm going to roll that bright intensity, that bright cap intensity all the way down. All the way back up. All the way back down. I don't really hear it. I'll be honest. It's like a little very subtle thing, but I don't hear it. But let's roll this gain all the way down. And now let's listen to it. Here's all the way off. Go to the middle position here. Now let's roll this all the way on and see, can we hear a difference? You know, that's huge. That's huge. Why? This bright cap intensity, it adds a lot when the gain's low, and it doesn't do much when the gain is high. Why? Well, because real amps work that way. Real amps work that way. There's a bright cap. It's wired into your, it's soldered right onto to your gain knob on a lot of amps. And it adds high end when you roll the gain down. And so here we are now. Where people are going, oh yeah, I got the super authentic liquid profile thing. And they're like, I like my, but what happened, right? Like I made a little change to the bright cap intensity, and all of a sudden when I roll it down, it's way different. And it's strange now. We have this control that it's like at low settings, it can be used like a tone control. I'm going to roll that down, and it's like my tone control. It's like there's a presence control. And it is. It's how much present high end is being added. But when I roll that back up, like we've demonstrated, and I roll that bright cap up, we're left with, you know, a lot of high end, or no high end, depending on where we have it set. You know, so the other thing that's happening with liquid profiling is this. Let's say I just have this bright cap at 5. It doesn't matter where it is. But listen to just the bass response when I show you. Here is the bridge of a clean, Plexi-ish, you know, Match Chief LP. Now look what happens when I roll up that gain. You have all that bass come in. Now look at my definition control. It's still at 4.9. Nothing's different, except now, in real life, when you experience an amp, you don't quite hear it the way you're hearing it right now. And the reason is this. The Kemper has a master volume. So it's leaving the volume that we're hearing relatively the same between clean and dirty. Real amps aren't like that. So what's happening is the Kemper is acting true to the frequencies the amp puts out, but it's not acting true to the decibels the amp puts out, meaning the Kemper is not going ultra loud when like a 100-watt Plexi would, and that's kind of what we're modeling here. And so what we're experiencing is the real change in frequency as we go up and down in gain. And so what you hear then is a ton of bass comes in with a lot of gain, and a lot of low end or a lot of the high end gets just kind of, it actually stays there, but in comparison to the low end, it's going down. It's actually staying the same, but it's adding in less high end the more gain we have on, because it's letting the signal go through. And as you roll up gain on anything, you get more low end. As you pull this gain back, all this low end is coming out because we don't have as much breakup, we don't have as much buildup, we don't have as much amplification. You know, it's not staying as huge. And so we don't have a lot of low-end buildup. Anybody who deals with amplifiers mic'd up will tell you that as you roll up the gain, you often will cut the low end. And that's, any high-gain amp or modded Marshall has low-end dumps. They're dumping low-end the more gain you put in. That's how you get a more defined sound. So now what we have on the Kemper is this kind of, it might be a confusing relationship, but it's actually the relationship that exists in the real world, where as you roll up gain, you get a ton of bass. And as you go clean, all of a sudden that bright cap, which is right here, it comes very much into play where it was less into play before. So it's kind of confusing. You have a control here, a presence control when it's clean, and a presence control that's not very good when it's dirty, which then has brought up a lot of questions for me, I'll be honest, because I got a couple comments recently on the YouTube channel, this is too bright for me. And I thought, well, yeah, it is bright, but it's a combination of things. It's like, one, I profiled the amp kind of flat. You know what I mean? Like if I want to do a clean profile, I might come in here and do this. I might say, okay, I've got my brightish sound. It's very bright, right? So I might come in here and roll this stuff up. I might cut my presence and cut my treble, and then I might have something like this. And on a Plexi, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to actually pull the presence way down, especially if we're going to have that bright capacitor. Sorry, I turned it off. If we have that bright cap all the way up, to me, on just the bright channel of the Plexi, I often will take the presence down almost to zero. It's also not uncommon for me to do this. And why is that? Well, on a Plexi, the middle actually adds a lot of like upper mids, and so I don't need as much treble and presence. I'm dumping the presence all the way off. But like we've talked about in previous videos, this Plexi style tone stack doesn't do a ton. So we've got kind of some confusing stuff, because then as I roll it up, what are we going to hear? Well, all all of a sudden I go, well, wait a minute. It sounds like my EQ totally changed. Let me roll that bass back. I'll leave my mids up, but let me bring some of that presence and treble up. It just sounds like it sounds less present than I would expect that same amp to sound. Let me roll that presence up a little more. So, what's the point of this? Well, at the end of the day, it's like to get accuracy, you give up actually the thing that made the Kemper so good, which is like you could just roll the gain up and it sounded like your sound, but with more gain. Now, some people would say, oh no, it didn't work very well. Well, I would say with a very clean profile, it didn't always work that well, going ultra dirty, but with a decently dirty profile, moving the gain around always sounded great to me. So I would say, and great and usable. Did it raise the gain like a Plexi did? No, but now that it does, you see the inherent problem. I only know these problems because I own these amps and I mic them up and move them around, and I've profiled so many of them. I know how I set up a Plexi clean. I know how I would set it up dirty. I know what happens. Like, where, you go on the bright channel, you dump the bass, you go on the normal channel, all of a sudden you're turning the presence and stuff way up. And ultimately you still are left with a bright channel and a dark normal channel, because the EQ is not more powerful than sort of that bright cap and the amount of gain and what it does to the EQ, because there's just not as enough bass filtering in an old Plexi to get rid of the bass as you roll up the gain. So if you use this and you're confused, it was confusing, and now it is confusing for the Kemper as well.